He's gonna get. He's gonna fight me. He's a big Viking. He thinks he's awesome.
Hey everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking, and I have another episode of Great Dungeon Master's Steel coming to you. Now, this is a series of videos, or a series of reviews basically, where I'm going to be taking RPG stuff, and I am going to be showing it to you, and I'm going to be suggesting that you take said stuff and steal stuff from it and use it in your own campaigns. Now this is mostly focused on D&D stuff because that's the role-playing game that I focus on. But if you have any ideas of supplements or books or whatever that are for non-D&D based like things like this, I'd love to know about them, and maybe I can track those down and I can talk about those after I read them. So the thing I want to talk to you about today is this book that I got through Kickstarter a while ago. It is called Monsters of Feyland. Now, I just want to say one thing. Bestiary books like this are obvious contenders for Great Dungeon Master's Steel. I am a big believer in non-classic monsters. The problem with classic monsters is, yes, there's something really cool about like going into a room and there's a troll. But the thing that stinks about that troll is that the players are like, oh, quick, get your torches out, because when we knock it down, we have to set fire to it, so it won't regenerate. And so like there's like an added aspect of tactics to that battle, which is fine. But there's no, like, you take away so much of the mystique and the tension and the horror from the combat when you know exactly what you're dealing with. Now, that doesn't really matter when it comes to things like orcs or hobgoblins or bugbears or whatever. You can throw those in there. But for, like, truly monstrous creatures, I mean, I'm not talking about you're fighting some bandits or whatever. But for truly monstrous creatures, I am a huge fan of, like, just making them up myself. And just, like, coming up with an idea, well, I really like an antkeg, those big, giant, insect creatures there. But instead of, like, how about make it like a big worm and, like, make its blood be kind of like a fiery acid that sets fire to the room when they're around it. And, just kind of, but take the same stats, kind of basically the same, but just change it up a little bit. So then people aren't like, oh, it's an antkeg, I know exactly what this does. There's nothing fun about when players, in my opinion, anyway, there's nothing fun about players are just like, oh yeah, here's another one of these things, I can remember playing a campaign, a Pathfinder campaign that I was running, and I remember I put in, like, it was one of those things where, I'll say this, DMs, like, people that the Dungeon Master a lot, can sometimes be the absolute worst players of all time, and I myself am very much a problem when it comes to this. I've worked hard to try not to be. But the reason why is because I remember I was like, oh, I was like scouring old monster manuals trying to come up with something that was going to be like difficult for the players to run into. And I found this like this undead dark naga or something like that. I forget what it was, and I put it in this room, and I was really excited about it. And they get in there, and like some is a guy named Ben, and a guy I used to work at a Pizza Hut with, and I remember like, but he had like an encyclopedic knowledge of like D&D stuff, and he was a dungeon master, and he was like, oh, this is a Dark Guardian Undead Naga. It has poison that does this, it does, it can phase through walls, it can fly, and also you need to watch out for a breath weapon of cold. So go ahead and cast that thing and do this, that, and the other thing, and the cleric can probably turn it. It's undead, remember. And I was just like, yeah, like, yeah. Anyway, so that's neither here nor there. I'll probably talk about that maybe in another episode. But anyway, I want to talk about this. So this is Monsters of Feyland. So the idea behind this is from it's like K-Wood Publishing or K-Wood or just C-A Wood Publishing. And first of all, just nuts and bolts. I think it's got over 100 monsters in it. It's about 120 pages, I think. The artwork is fantastic. I mean, like the artwork like that you see in there, and you see here that's the art that you're gonna see on the inside. Like here's just like Here's like a picture of this gremlin and a winged goblin. So, and I'm not going to go page by page through this or anything like that. It just, if you're looking for like as far as nuts and bolts, it's just good. It's written for 5th edition D&D, which I think 5th edition D&D is actually pretty good because of the reason why 5th edition D&D stuff is really easy to transfer over to 1st edition D&D. Basically old. It's really easy to transfer over to old school game systems, which is what I play. So there is obviously a theme to it. They're talking about Feyland. So if you know like fey creatures, nixies, pixies, brownies, elves for that matter, things like that. There is a premise to all the creatures that are within this thing. There are undead. There are just standard creatures like that winged goblin. But the big thing here, and I do want to show you this, is that they do give a little bit of background for Feyland. They give a little bit of background, for some advice or whatever. But then they actually give like what they call these 2 courts, and they're right there, like this. Oh, another really good piece right there. But like the Seaweed Court and the Unsealy Court, and this is just a listing of the different people that are in that. And so you have the capability, just because of the fact that they basically show you the good guys and the bad guys, and these things are all, and these are like named creatures, like the Queen of Darkness, the Skeleton King, the Harvest Maidens, the Autumn Fairies, things like this. They have names to them. They're like significant. They aren't just generic monsters. So you could actually use this as a wonderful source book to set up a whole adventure around, adventuring in like a fey, storyline, if you will. You also, if you've been watching my like how to create a campaign series, which I've been putting together, you could take these 2 courts, this fey world, and you could add it to your world as major NPCs, as a sphere of influence, things like that, that could affect what the players are going on. If I have one detraction from this is that the artwork, which I've said is fantastic. Here's some more artwork. The artwork, which is fantastic, and the stat blocks are both huge, and then it's like they purposely used a really large font for like the descriptions of for both the creatures and also the creatures' descriptions. So the monsters themselves don't really have. They have like a like kind of like a 1 or 2 like description. So it's like lycanthropes, werefox. And like the entire description for it is, the werefox is sly and charming. They are most curious of their kind. They usually blend into small communities. Unlike the other lycanthropes in Feyland, they keep their true form secret. They feel most at home in the deepest part of the woods. And that's it. That's your description. And admittedly, once again, the artwork's really cool, so you could just say, this is what you see, which is something that I use quite a bit when it comes to these things. I don't hate it, I guess, is probably the best way to say it. I'm not like, oh, this ruins it for me, so it's like, I needed better descriptions, or here's like the Queen of Darkness, like the evil Queen of Darkness, or whatever. But even she's got like, leading the evil Unsealy Court is the powerful Queen of Darkness. She is also the Queen of Magic and Murder. Some know her as the Queen of Bats. This ruthless archfey rules over the 2 divisions of the Unsealy Court, the Winter Court and the Autumn Court. She is hateful, spiteful monster who seeks to destroy the Sealy Court. And it's like, but that's it. Now, that could be leaving it all open. There's some other stuff like, you read the backgrounds of the 2 courts other places. Maybe that's not the best example. But I see 2 sides of the story. One, it's like, we left it kind of purposely vague, so you can do what you want with it, and you can change it up how you want to, and you can use it however you want. But also I can see this side where it's like, they just didn't want to really write a huge background to it. Now, that's neither here nor there. Ultimately, I think that if you are a dungeon master worth your salt, you're going to be able to insert these creatures in however you like, and you don't have to like even make it about this Fey stuff. Anytime you have more monsters that you can use, stuff that your players haven't seen, stuff that your players haven't dealt with, it's a good thing. And I love monster books. Like whenever I get a new monster book, ultimately what I do is I start just reading it, and I keep a and this is probably, if I ever do my tips of DMing, this is probably something I'll do. I grab a stack of Post-it notes and I put it next to me, and I start paging through. And when I find a monster that like makes the little light bulb go off in my head, like bing, that would be really cool in an encounter with, I could use that in my campaign. I take a Post-it note out, I put it in the book, and I leave it in that spot. And just so I can remember, okay, that was a kind of a cool thing. Maybe we'll come back to that. Maybe we'll use that in another adventure sometime soon. And so I put that in there, and then I read through the whole thing. So this, I guess if you are a dungeon master, you want more monsters, and who doesn't want more monsters? I do, even with the description thing going on. I strongly suggest this book. The artwork is fantastic. The artwork itself is really evocative. I mean, it's like I was looking at the art, and I was coming up with ideas of what I was thinking. Oh, you know what I could do? Like kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, I could use that monster here. I could do that with this monster. So the smaller description blurbs, not that big of a deal. I would strongly suggest tracking this one down. Like I said, I got this through Kickstarter, but I think you can go directly to the publisher and get this, or maybe you can get it through Drive-Thru-RPG. I do know, and depending upon when you watch this video, I do know that they're having another Kickstarter either right now or I think it is right now. It's for another monster book, and I think I backed it actually, because I mean it was just an instant back. I mean, same artist, same really cool stuff going on, and like I said, they really knocked it out of the park with this one. I can only assume they're going to continue to do so, and I hope they continue making more and more of these. I think the next one's called like Monsters of the Underworld or something like that. So anyway, there you go. Check that one out. Go track it down and get your own copy so you can surprise your players with even more evilness and diabolical creatures, and good creatures too. Helpful people. They'll help them along and maybe assist them in the adventures that you're going to create. If you have any RPG books out there you think I should check out, by all means, let me know so I can track those down, and maybe I can give them a read and do a video like this. Thank you as always for taking time to watch this video. If you have any other comments or post away, if you can take some time, you want to go ahead and subscribe or whatever, feel free to do so as well. As always, I'm the Undead Viking. You're awesome. Be the best version of you you possibly can be. And thank you, as always, for everything. The more love you give to the universe, the more love the universe is going to give